Project Lancer. My name is Matt, and in this video we're going to be covering how to set up a mean stack application. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. When it comes to creating a mean stack application, there's no definitive right way to do it. However, there are some key components that you'll be covering, and there's a particular process that I follow that has always worked for me. And I use it for pretty much every project I create. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our Express backend. So I have this app called My App that I just created a Git repository for. That's what I'm going to be working in. I would encourage you to, if you're following along, to create the similar app, just My App here, in a Git repository. And right now it's empty. You can see that there's nothing in it. So first thing, let's open a terminal in Visual Studio Code. And we're going to say npm install global express and express generator. And while that goes, I'm just going to hop over. I have a written document for this as well. You can find in Project Lancer how to set up a mean stack application. And we're pretty much just going to go through all the steps listed here. So if you ever wanted to reference it or see kind of exactly how or copy the commands that I'm typing, you can find them all here at this URL. And I'll include that in the comment section as well as anywhere that I post this. So let's hop back to our text editor. So right now, what do we get an error? Oh, it's because I spelled it wrong. So we'll go express generator. There you go. So that's installed globally. So once completed, we need to create our app. And we can build our app by saying express my app, and we'll call it API. So I always call my backend API there. Again, typo. Express my app API. So then you'll see my app API up here, and you'll see that it's created our framework of our Express app for us with our app.js routes, bin, where you can go into bin. If you click the www, you can see the port that your server will run on. So now that we've got it installed, we need to install our dependencies. Let's go ahead and cd into this. cd, so we'll call my app API, and we're going to say npm install MongoDB, Mongoose, and course. All right, once installed, we can add these dependencies to our actual app. So we're going to hop over to our app.js file, right? And inside of here, under var app, we're going to say var course equals require course. I'm going to say var mongoose equals require mongoose. And then we're going to say app.use course below there to use it. We're going to save. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to create our environment variable. So we're going to right click in our API. We're going to click new file. We're going to call it .env. So we're not going to add anything to this here, but it's just important to include this. And this is just going to contain any environment variables that we're going to use across our Express app. After that, we need to create another folder. So we're going to go right click and we're going to say new folder. And we're going to call this models. Again, we're not going to add anything to here, but that's where we would specify are like actual data types and things of that nature, right? So if we were creating a route that contained an API, I was going to save something to a database called users, I would put my users like data structure inside of the models, right? In which case we could then say, username, password, those types of things, any sort of data value that would exist on that type of user. We would create a model for it. Okay, next thing we need to do is test it, because at this point our app is pretty much built, right? So we can go to our terminal. We'll just go npm run start. So I already have this port in use, so let me go ahead and close down whatever's in this text editor. So now I can run this again. You'll see that it is running. So if we go to our browser and we go HTTP localhost 3000, you should see Express. Welcome to Express, right? So that shows that our server is up and it is running. So next thing we need to do is we can create our front end, our Angular front end. So I'm going to go ahead and close the server down, cd up, and then we're going to install our Angular core and Angular CLI. So we're going to go npm install globally at Angular core and at Angular CLI. So this is actually installing Angular on your computer. Okay, so what we do now is we can then create our app. So we'll go ng, and you want to make sure you're in your parent directory, my app. We'll go ng new my app UI. It's going to say which format do you want to use. We're just going to say classic CSS. And do you want to enable server-side rendering or not? I'm going to say no. And this is going to then create our app. Okay, looks like it's done. So what we can see now is my app UI, and we can see our Angular app in here. So first thing we're going to do once our app is built is create our environment directory and files. So we're going to go ahead and make a directory. So let's see, where do we want to put this? I think we put it in our source. Yeah, so inside our source directory, we're going to right click and we're going to say new folder, and we're going to call that environments. Okay, and then inside of our environments directory, we're going to create two more files. And the first one, we're going to call it environment.ts. And the next one we're going to call environment.prod.ts. Okay. So in our base level environment, we're going to say export const environment. Production is going to be false. And then we're going to say our base URL. URL is going to be HTTP localhost 3000. We'll click save. And then we're going to go to environment prod. We're going to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and copy. But our production is going to be true. Our base URL is going to be HTTPS API dot my app.com. Right, and this is just whatever your domain actually is, right? So we got our local host, and then we got the actual domain that our production environment would sit on. Save. So now once our environment files are created, we need to add our production build criteria to our angular.json file. So we're going to go ahead and click angular.json. We come down and you see this configurations, production. Inside of here, we're going to come in and we're going to say, quote, file replacements. It's going to open up a bracket for us. It's going to close that. And we're going to say, quote, replace source environments, environment.ts, enter, quotes with source environments, environment prod, ts, right? So essentially that's saying whenever we build with our production environment, we're going to replace our standard environment with our production environment. That way our paths don't have to change. Okay, so next is going to be to save, and we're going to create our services directory. So we're going to go ahead and open up our app. We're going to right click and we're going to say new folder, and we're going to call it services. This is where we'll contain all of our services. And while we're in here, let's go ahead and cd into that. Cd my app UI, cd source, cd app, cd services. Something let's rename that. Services, I like it to be plural. So inside of here, I generally will go ng generate service global. And we're not going to add anything to this. We don't want to share that with Google. And we'll let it create that service. And you'll see we have a global service. And I'll just add like any global services in here. Nothing used right now, but I always just kind of create it when I create a project. Right, so the last thing we need to do in our project is going to be to create a gitignore file. So we can cd all the way up. All the way out. So we're in our my app, and from here we can touch a .gitignore file. I guess because I'm on Windows, it doesn't like that. So what we'll do is go right click, new file, .gitignore. And then inside of here, there's a bunch of stuff we'd want to ignore. Let's go ahead and go to our blog. You can see at the very bottom I have it here, and we just essentially don't want to add our logs, we don't want to add our node modules, or any of our build directories, things like that, right? So we're just importing our app, and then we don't upload all those other dependencies. So we'll go ahead and come in here, we'll right click, we'll paste it, we'll save it. Now that we've created our get ignore, the last thing we'd want to do is come back to our API. We'll go to our app.js, and we would just add our connections to our database. So we can go down here. You can put it really anywhere, but we'll go under the app use, and we'll just say connect to MongoDB. And what we would do is we would say mongoose. Let's put another comment. So we'll say development DB. We'll say mongoose.connect. Inside of here, you'd put your development database connection. And we don't have a database connected, right? But then we could put our production database here, which would be the exact same. And you could add a staging one as well if you needed to. Right, and whenever you build, you just either take these comments out. So we click save, right, and then this is our database connection, right? So this is everything I do to set up my MeanStack applications anytime I start a new project, right? The next steps would be to connect the Angular front end to the Express backend APIs, but we would need a functioning API and service with data to return from our database to complete this. So maybe I'll create some other videos that we cover that in separate posts. But here you can get a good foundational understanding of, this how I'd set it up, and you're pretty much ready to build your application from this point on. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Make sure you save your file, and thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video.